times build character.
This isn't just a show, this is real life. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
You gotta see it before anyone else can see it.
Every second, every minute, every day.
We train for life. We got you.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode number 9, the Relentless Way podcast. Paul Alvear here with longtime friend and business partner Matt Strout. Our topic today is going to be to focus on yourself. It's been a while since it's just been Matt and I here in the podcast studio, just kind of rapping and talking about a topic. We had a couple Q&A episodes where it was him and I talking a couple episodes back, and we've had some unbelievable guests this whole season, going back into the end of last season. A lot of fun. It's always good energy to have new people in here. But of course, it's always fun just to have ourselves and be talking, as much as we can, keeping the ball rolling. So, what I want to start off with today is we're going to really go into the importance of focusing on, believing in, valuing, and competing with oneself. So, to be selfish, to really take time while listening to this episode, while going on with the rest of your day, to do things to focus on yourself. Become very, very selfish in moments. And of course, we're going to dive a lot deeper into it and have some good conversation. That's just what comes to mind for us is in this world that we're in now, and just life in general, as we grow and as we learn, as young adults, to say the least, we realize how selfishness becomes different. It's not the way it used to be for us. We were maybe looked at it as a bad thing. You were selfish, you focus on you. And maybe in those moments, those are things that we did because we were young and naive and we were being selfish with silly stuff, right? But this is being selfish with you, being selfish with your growth and your overall person. And that's what we want to really talk about today and really dive into.
No, well said. I mean, I think to sum it up, I think everyone should focus on legacy, your name, the legacy that is left behind. Because we've done an episode speaking on the difference between influencing others or leading others. So I think something that everyone should take into account is that we're all influencing the people around us, right? So you don't need. We're not just talking to leaders, meaning people who have stepped up and said, "Hey, I'm leading this organization or this movement," right? We're just talking to everybody. Everyone can because we're constantly trying to do it too. So it's never an end goal. You would constantly just keep striving to become better, right? And for me, legacy is your name, how people perceived you, how they speak upon it, and what's going to be left. And obviously now we have children, right? So we have my little baby girl that I love to watch grow up every day and watch these evolutions take place, which has been amazing. I think the blessing of the timing of this journey and having them, I think it just all comes together. I'm a big believer of that, but we really focus on working with humans from all different walks of lives, from younger to older, and any type of experience that you could imagine, right? We're blessed for that. But I think to get a sweet little baby from scratch and literally watch it come into the world to the evolution of growth from literally not being able to do anything for itself and knowing how to then slowly develop these little things. I think it's been an amazing experience because you kind of get to watch the true foundation of every human, because that's where we all start, right? So for me now, it's about when people speak about her daddy and talk about him, or when she watches me and she sees me in moments and she sees the way I act, the way I speak, the way I carry myself, I want her to feel that. I want her to feel that energy because, number one, I want her to feel safe and okay and know that everything is going to be okay no matter the given circumstance, because we'll figure it out. As well as I want her to I want to be the greatest human that I could be, right? For her to see, for her to hear, for her to feel, so that she can be I want to be like that, right? I want to give off that, because the reality is this. Eventually, we all get out into the jungle, I like to call it, the real world. So whatever you were being told or seeing inside of your circle. We've spoke on this many times before of like your inner families growing up, the inner circles, and you think it's one thing, and then you get a little older and you hear differently and you see differently, and then you get a little older, and then eventually you get out, right? Now you're in the jungle, so now you're older and you have to see your own perspective on everything. And the reality is it is what it is, right? So whether you want it to be truth and facts or you don't, either way it is. So like in those moments, when the time is right, she's going to see what's done, right? And the people around us that we love, this is real stuff. So you can't hide the way that people act and they carry themselves and all this stuff. It just is what it is. So now as we're older, like you said now, we see all these things very differently. And I think that's why it is so important for us on a day-to-day basis, being leaders in the Relentless movement, but just being leaders in our homes, to our wives, to our families, and now to our children. So I think it comes very full circle for us. It's a really exciting topic to talk about, and I think we have some really cool things to dive into to also throw out some different tactics that we use as well to give them out into the world for people to use for them.
It's amazing to me because it's what you kind of just described there. It's such a short period of time, only your Amelia's only been in this world for 16 months.
Yeah,
so like that's the importance of time, and to that example, creating a vision for that human and for that person. So one thing we touch on a lot is, and we've been doing a lot within our own lives and within our own movement, the Relentless Way, is creating that vision, is going to that further place and putting that vision out there for yourself. Like not how do we want the world to see it, not how do we want someone else to see it. Like how, for Matt and I, how do we envision, like, this is our baby Relentless, this is what we want to do. Starting off with, how do we envision it, right? And if you do everything right along the way, for the most part, right, you surround yourself with the people that believe the way you do, that are in the same world as you in a sense, not everything's going to be agreed on and perfect, but the team we created is what I'm referring to. When you put that vision out there, they're going to salivate over it too. You know what I mean? For the most part. And then the ability to use this time that we have to implement everybody in and allow them to create their paths in the vision too. I mean, that's, again, before we got on live, you were talking about, ultimately, it's the reason you grow and focus on yourself is to have influence on other people. You know what I mean? In your life. Like, I feel like you're being selfish to grow yourself, but so then you could give.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's just so important, again, to realize like how much happens within a short period of time. To the example of the a young baby being brought into this world, and how fast they learn and grow, and that rate doesn't stop. Yeah, we might not think it. We might think it stops, but that rate doesn't stop. And then at the same time, painting that vision for everybody. You know what I mean? Painting the vision for the person that maybe can't paint their vision yet. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think so. Two things that come to my mind. Number one, I think we all know deep down who we wish we were. Right? Like, when you think of who you really desire, what you want to be, or when you see someone, you're like, oh, I wish I was like that. Like, we all have gone through those moments at a young age, and I think the switch that I flipped a while back was like, I look at myself as like a character, almost like in a video game almost, right? Where it's like you see like your attributes and your things. Right. Like, as I go through life, I've opened myself up to be forever learning. Like, on the we just spoke on that on a podcast recently, but it's like, I'm forever learning. So, like, when I see something or someone speak or someone act, like whatever it is, I'm taking it all in and I'm saying, hey, I like that. Right. Or, hey, I don't like that. And then I
creating
see
your own player.
And I'm just kind of creating my own player. And like for me though, it's to be the ultimate version of a human, like I said, and listen, I'm not perfect by any means. I just am not afraid to reflect on myself and be real and being like, that's not good. So like, do you like that? No? All right, so let's fix it now. So what do I do? I'm okay with all of that. And I think because I have I feel such an obligation to create a person and a place and a team. It started with a person, then it was a place, and now it's a team, right? So it's a trickle effect for people in their lives to go to be a real thing, right? Like, for me, the big human, right? I've had great influences throughout my whole life. There's many people who have influenced me, but the one first big person that really made me see and feel and think differently was Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins just hit me differently in my heart. He spoke differently. It just gave me a different feeling, okay? And when I saw one man could do that, and then I saw the changes making, I'm like, well, if he could do it, I could do it too. It's just my competitive nature. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to study him. Like, he's the GOAT. Then it was Tim Grover. So the list for me is Tony Robbins, Tim Grover, Ed Milet, Eric Thomas, Andy Frisella, David Goggins, and then myself. Like, that's the list of people that when I think like influence people, like people who have influenced millions and millions of people in the world, like that's the list, and I'm just on it already. I've been on it. I decided in my head, and now it's like, all right, anyone can say something. Now, what are you going to do to create that? You know, and then you put your head down, you put the work in, and you start doing it. So I think it's about understanding who do you want to be and how do you want to be it, and then figuring out, putting your head down. And now it's about becoming that person that people turn to no matter what, right? We talk about this a lot as well. Like, people call us for all different things at any time of the day, and we love that. We're problem solvers. That's what we have become. And I think, like you said before, it's we've done this to do this not just for ourselves but for others. It's a great feeling to know that you're okay in any given moment, in any circumstance, and you'll figure it out. And that everyone else around you feels that too.
The coolest thing is that these guys that you mentioned, or these influencers that you've mentioned, or just men that you talked about, the reason that one of the biggest reasons they connect so well is because they put themselves out there as, I'm just a regular guy. Right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
you've done it very well.
It's with all the other influences going on in the world, especially that's at a distance of a reach, whether it's listening to podcasts, watching a show, following an influencer, following a page. So these men that you mentioned, in my opinion, have done an unbelievable job of creating connection and a level of seeing on the same page and relatability. Yep. So, going back and tying that into other humans and other people in our lives, what we see in them is the same things and the same connections we've had with our longtime partner, someone such as Perry.
Yep.
Maybe our fathers in certain ways. Uncles that have, I always speak about my one uncle in LA, my Uncle Pep, who has influenced me in that way, because these people have, the one thing that they all have in common is through their influence, they've been able to take men like you and I, or people like Brian, or just people that are looking to grow and get better, and be relatable and put you on the same level. And it's not for them. It's not about standing on the stage and in front of you and just telling you things and what to do. It's about bringing you in and involving you, because it helps them grow. We talk about this a lot, right? It helps them grow because what they're giving to you and how your growth helps them and helps them grow too. It empowers you as well. So I go back personally to number one, my father. I always have had a great relationship with him. I've always worked side by side with him in everything I've done in life. I call him for just about everything, to run it by him, whether we make the final decision we both agree on or not.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's likewise. It's both ways. I have a very close relationship with my brother in a very similar way. When we're thinking in the same headspace, of course. But for me, it was through the impactful moments in my life where, again, we go back to sport here, but I necessarily am not bringing it up for the sport. I'm bringing it up for the leadership that was involved in it and the connection. But coaches of mine. So it's funny when I look at it along the way. It was a couple influential people that coach and led me, and they were men older than I am now and have lived a lot more life than I have to this point in my life. And I was a boy, I was from probably 13 all the way up to my early 20s, even into college a little bit. But it was my travel baseball coach, which was Dave Asta. So it was interesting because Mark, who we went to school with and we were, friendly with, and he was a teammate of mine. This man, I was always like salivating to learn and to grow. That is something that I always had in me. And he was a coach leading our team, but we would communicate, and he taught me how to lead. He taught me how to make decisions, not only on the field but in life. And then it trickled right into high school, and it was almost like a pass off. And it was Frank Malta, who was very influential with me through that way. And it was a similar thing. The things that I look back on half the stories aren't even about the sport. It's about the lessons that were learned, the lessons that were taught in the moment, the conversations, the phone calls when shit was going on off the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even in a short span, when I went into college at Albright and I played for 2 years, Jeff Filer, he was the head coach there, and it wasn't him, it was Coach Yeager, the pitching coach, who I connected with because I was just pitching at that time. Similar, like for 2 years of my life that I was there working with this team, I created this connection with this man. But the one thing, again, I'm going back to is these people were able to create relatability. So that's a huge thing in what we're talking about today, and in working on yourself is be relatable to people. Create relatability to people you're trying to influence. Create relatability to people you're trying to learn and grow from too. If someone's not giving that off and they're keeping that door closed, then that's not someone you want to learn and grow from, in my opinion.
100%. And like to be an example, like we think back, like I think there's a lot of people in this world that want to tell you what to do and how to do it and all this, and you kind of step back and you reflect and you're like, but you're not doing it.
Right.
Like you haven't like it's so it's like it's a tough thing, and I think do what I say now as I do, and like all those old sayings, like I don't like I'm not into that. I believe like because there's different levels of it, right? So like you don't have to be like where I'm at, for example, like in my physical journey, right? Like I've gone through so many levels of it, from starting out focusing on being the biggest, strongest person in the room to a more educational standpoint to then a very like functional, well-rounded standpoint, right? And now I'm more into like a just like well-rounded. I'm not going to be the strongest guy in the room, and I'm okay with that. I'm more like pound for pound based, but ultimately it's going through those moments in my life of understanding, like, and it's hard, right? Like the chapter I just entered in my life is like realizing that like I'm probably never gonna lift crazy heavy weight anymore, but like I'm okay with it, like because I had to realize, like, what am I doing? What am I competing for? I'm just competing to be pound for pound strong. Like how strong am I as just myself in real life, and I don't want to hurt myself, right? I want to still look good. I want to have a little aesthetics to myself, but the shifts and changes that you have to make as a human, right, or as a man, for me personally, it's a man. That's hard because you're battling your pride, your ego, and those are the emotional side, right? So we talk a lot about the mental, the physical, and the emotional, and I think there's different elements to that. And I think for me, growing up, I always had vision and dream, again, heavily influenced by the upcomings of all my parents, my mother, my father a lot. My uncle was also a big influence on me. He was an entrepreneur as well. So really coming from that hard work ethic and love background, but then also always giving, right? Like it was always the give. Like I was at a very close family growing up, and it was always back and forth. And we just pop back and forth to houses. You walk in, what's up? Like it's not like it's just one of those things, and that feeling feels so good. But I think for me, it was always about creating a person that could do it all. And I mean that, like, I'll explain it, right? Like, where I could be a successful entrepreneur and be a pioneer of recreating the industry, because we've always talked about that, and I've been talking about that since I'm little. But then create that family and have that family vibe, and I think...
Who says you can't do it that way, right?
Right, and history, unfortunately, if you study history, it's very hard, right? I study, like, Steve Jobs. I study the guys who have created empire-branded movements, and it's hard. It's not common to be able to do that and run a successful family. It's a lot. It takes a lot of your soul out. So I think to research and study and learn them, and then understand that there is those three elements of myself, and I have to cater to all of them in order to be my best self. And if I'm my best self, then I could probably figure out, if I never give up on it, how to be all of those things. And I think the secret to it all is time management. I believe it's the glue. So how you own, how you prioritize, how you delegate your time is the secret to connecting all of those things I just spoke about.
I want to go back to just our relationships with, successful entrepreneurs and self-made men such as Ralph Johnson, who we had on the podcast a couple episodes ago. Who we speak about. We were hoping to one day get Perry Barbarulo on the podcast, but how it comes down to respect. So when you speak about like kind of older or adult influence, people that are influencing your life that are adults and that are in a different place, like being closed to you. You kind of mentioned something before, like that doesn't have to be. And the thing that these men have done for us from a young age too, when if you want to talk about like age being like kind of a factor in there of like, you know, I don't know, like you'll know when you're older.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We'll get there. We'll be able to talk about that when you turn 21. We'll be able to talk about it when you turn 25, whatever it may be, right? These men have said, listen, we've established respect. You know your place, right? It's like kind of like the old school, like old school, like Goodfellas and stuff. Like you know your place. You're gonna be around this kid. You're kid. You could hang with me. You could be around all this. You're gonna learn, and don't screw it up. You're gonna learn respect, but you're gonna learn the most because you're gonna get it at this age, and you're gonna see and be able to be influenced by it. But also, as long as you could keep that respect and respect what you're learning and what you're seeing and what's going on. And again, I'm not talking about like bad stuff going on. I'm just talking about things that maybe at a certain point in your life you shouldn't be making that decision because you just don't know yet. Yeah. You know? So or when you make that decision, you don't have the means to recover, you know, if it's a financial decision, if it's a emotional decision, if it's a relationship decision, you just don't know how to react or respond to that, you know? You don't have your you know, exit strategy or your stuff in place to respond to that. So it comes so much down to just respecting what you're learning, being on the same wavelength and being in the same place as that person, you know? Along the way, we've created a very, very solid relationship with Perry, you know? And he is a very, very successful man, but he's also, in his own ways, a very successful, has had a lot of success influencing you and I'm sure many other people along the way, and many other, you know, kids, but I think really you and I has become like a father figure to us where, you know, we've been to a point we're at now, he's starting to make his way out and in a sense of like he's always there for us, but he's at a different point in his life. And it's so fun for us, we've been doing a lot in the last couple months or so to reflect back and really truly feel and understand all the lessons that were taught to us. And then for us to be able to be selfish in the moment and take it all in, but then find ways to give it back out and to teach these other young bucks that are around us, or anyone that comes across our path to operate in that same way, you know?
It's so true, and you know, I grew up watching Goodfellas, A Bronx Tale. I love that. I've always loved that style. I love the culture of it. Obviously, what they do, I'm not necessarily condoning.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I think, you know, like he said, those moments, they do come back to us because it reminds us like what we did originally with the Goose was the first one. Now we have a lot of these young generations that we love to bring them under and bring them in. But like you're saying, to show them, give them experiences. The experiences that we've been able to have when we weren't supposed to have them. You know, we've had experiences where we've had some fun party nights with our boy Damien, right, who's a self-made entrepreneur as well. From Jets.com, so shout out Jets.com if anybody wants to look into fly, hit us up, private jets. But he took us, when we had an event we hosted for one of our buddies, right? And our buddies had a bachelor party in Vegas, and we couldn't go, it was just too much going on. And I talked to him and I was like, yeah, you think we could do something in AC? And he's like, yeah, I got you, I'll take care of you. So here's a man that was my client, we worked very closely, and I gave him all of myself, but these guys, like, they respect us more than we even know without us knowing, right? So he's like, I asked you to do me a favor, and he's like, yeah, no big deal. But, you know, to make a long story short, it's just like, he took it upon himself to have, I brought as many people as I wanted. We had, like, the top level suites of the Borgata. We had all the highest end stuff. We were playing, he was playing in the high end room. But it's just about the experience, right? Sure. Is that he wasn't afraid to bring us on and to feel something different. Again, Perry, on my bachelor party, we went to Perry's house, open arms. He has houses in South Carolina. Us and all my boys went out there in these beautiful houses, and he lets us experience these things. He took us out on his boat, right? We're talking like a 60-foot yacht boat. Like, it's not a boat, it's a yacht. It looks like a house on the water. But to walk in, these are things that, like, you don't necessarily, some people may never experience those things, and it's not right or wrong, but it's just like, it's cool to see what could be out there if you dedicate yourself and you want those things. And these guys don't need these things. It's funny too, because a lot of these guys are pretty simple men, but it's more of like, I like to call it financial and time freedom. Like, they just want what they want when they want it, and that's it, right? They don't want to be told yes or no, and I think that mentality that we have of being stubborn and thick-headed in a way and never giving up, but knowing not to do the same thing over and over again, is that level of growth, which then brings new experiences, which then allows us to share with others, and then it becomes a contagious, beautiful experience for all.
And it's what we've done with the experiences and what you do with the experiences. And also, the experiences in between. The moments in between when we might have enjoyed ourselves that night, had fun, we were out, we were partying, we were hanging out, we went out and had a nice dinner, you gambled a little. But when you wake up that next morning and you're sitting down at breakfast and man to man, you're around, you're being influenced, and you see how, all right, now it's back to work, it's back to life, or whatever. It's just it's just constant. It's constant. It's back to growth, right? Yes.
Well, real quick,
it's back to growing.
I'm gonna add to that. We were in South Carolina on our bachelor party. We wake up early or whatever, and Perry, where's Perry? Us, all of us, we're 22, 23, 24. We're living. He has 2 houses. We're living in both of them. We're going back and forth. And when we go down in the morning, where's Perry? Sitting there with his glasses on his iPad, going over QuickBooks numbers for all of his businesses. He's back on it. And we've talked about that. I get the chills thinking
he's
about it.
He's out in the car. You want to take a ride with me? I have to go here. I have to do this.
I got to make
I have
a call.
to stop here. I have to go there. So
he's making his time.
It's nonstop. And
it's cool.
And you learn it. That's obviously a fun experience, right?
Yep.
But you also learn it through work too. So those same experiences that Perry gave us there, he also gave us many times when we were building and doing things just for relentless and for business. It's hey, let's hop in the car. We got to go pick this up. Do things. A lot of when you get to that point of success, you respect it so much. It's not about telling someone else to do it. It's not about hiring someone else to do it, paying for someone else to do it. It's about completing and doing it on your own. So you respect it and you continue to operate in that way. Goes to our meeting this week, right? When we've been talking about taking we pride ourselves and have a beautiful, clean facility, 24 hours a day, right? And we had just a meeting to take it to another level, right? And that's what it's about. Yeah. It's about focusing on the tasks, focusing on let's go to your overall vision, focus on the tasks that need to be done and taking all the emotion out of it, and then really focusing on yourself and what you need to do for yourself to get all that done and complete it, because that's what's fulfilling.
Correct.
When you go home at night, I don't care who you are, it sits in our little, whatever size your brain is, it sits in it, right? And it says, I haven't been vacuuming, I haven't been putting the weights back in the right place, I haven't been cleaning the bathrooms, I haven't been giving, maybe not I haven't been doing, I haven't been giving my all.
Yeah, because
and everyone has moments of it. You're not human if you don't have moments of it, including ourselves, who should and does hold and is the most prideful about the cleanliness of it. We know there's certain moments where you go home and you're like, shit, like, I got to up it a little bit. I got to get back to checking these things. Correct. You know what I mean? And you just recheck yourself and you're real with yourself.
Yep. The difference is the time. So as I study the greatest, I call that reflection, right? Ed Milet has a great talk on this, and I'll minimize it down. But basically, that what you're speaking on is I love it. It's self-reflection. Right. So most humans reflect once a year on New Year's Eve, right? You think about what you did this year, and you're like, all right, I'm setting this, and this.
So I'm the only person that goes home and thinks about that stuff? I'm just kidding.
No, you're
I'm in the lower...
You're in a high-level position. So once a year. The next person that's trying to like pick up their life and go to the next level is maybe once a quarter. Right. So that's 4 times a year, right? All right, cool. They're picking up their juice. Next level, they go once a month. That's 12 times a year now, right? All right, we're starting to get some steam going. Next person is probably going to go once a week now, okay? So that's 52 times a year. Now we're starting to get some juice flowing here, right? Next would be once a day. That's 360. You went from 52 to 365 times a year, right? The next person, I would say, would be almost like hourly, right? Each hour. And then I think the highest people in the world... I'm doing the math. Right? That's a calculator. Take your calculators out for that. But the next one would be where I'm striving to get to, and I think it's a forever growing moment. But I think the greatest people in the world, whether it be the high-level entrepreneurs, or, for example, I always go back to Tom Brady in a sports position. Tom Brady is the GOAT of the high-level sport. Just the way that he sees the game is different. But these guys are reflecting experience by experience.
Right.
So
it could be multiple times, an hour, minutes, hours, seconds.
It's
right?
like if I like when I'm speaking to you, when I'm done, I'm like, should I have said that better? Like my brain is just how it works now, right? And I'm not too hard on myself, so I'm not trying to be like, you can't be crazy about it. It has to be almost like we grew up again playing with our dads that are coaches forever, right? My dad's always coached me, was an amazing coach, but what we did was we reflected after the games. We didn't necessarily talk about the stuff I did good. Him and I had a untalked about thing that I'm supposed to show up and work harder than everybody else. That's how I was raised. So if we're playing basketball and we got a lockdown defense and I'm running point, he's like, nobody scores. And I'm gonna say, yes, sir. And I get on the field, no, I shut down defense. Like, that's it, I'm meeting you at the line. So those things weren't even talked about. It's like, all right, cool, we won. Like, all right, Dad, what could I have done better? What I missed? And it was like, it wasn't even like I had to say it. We just started talking about it. So I was talking about those other little moments. And I think you do that and you feel that, and then all of a sudden it becomes like fun, right? Because when you do it and then you fix it, all of a sudden you start getting better. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm getting better. This is cool, right? So, like, it's not the worst thing. But I think when you come with it full circle, if you could learn how to, like, turn off emotionally and just kind of take it and then go off of that and just want, like we keep talking about the big vision. If that's where you're at, then you don't overanalyze how someone gave you some feedback.
Sure,
you take it, you analyze, and you see if you should do it, and then you fix. Does it make sense to go to the overall vision? You got to change it up, like so.
So it's if you're doing hourly, it's 8,760 times you're thinking about that. And then after that, I'm not doing the math. It's just infinity because it's
infinity, right?
it really is.
It's have an experience and then just kind of reflect. How could it have been done better? You know, and I think. But that's crazy, like, right? It's crazy. Think about the amount of times that you have that you don't even realize. And this goes back to the thing, too. Like, it's never too late to want to fully change your whole self.
For sure.
Just think about all these opportunities you have.
You're working on the quality of your thoughts, working on the quality of what's going through your brain and how you are filtering it.
Yes.
From different tools you're using, whether you're writing it down, whether you do have a good memory and you're noting things or think you're finding a way to put it in a different compartment in your brain that stands out more, Think about what we were talking about, I forget if it was before we got on live here or kind of in the pre-show a little bit, about priming ourselves whatever time of day it is, but generally early in the morning to focus on the emotional end of it and getting past the point of heightened emotion, so then all those other moments throughout the day and those emotions that come about you are nothing, So Matt used an example of he's not an early morning workout, or he's not an early morning wake up person by like that's not what he's been. But in the last couple of years of his life, 3:45 on that clock hits and he's up, and he goes through those emotions in those moments, in those minutes, in that first hour of the day, whatever it is. He goes through the emotion of like, I don't like this. I love laying in my bed and sleeping. But I'm going to get over it. I'm going to move on and start attacking my tasks. So now when little things come his way throughout the day, or when little things come at us, those little things are nothing. When someone says, hey, man, like, I really don't like the color you guys painted that wall. It just, you get it, you note it, and it goes right out. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for the feedback. We'll look into it. You know what I mean? And,
what color do you think could be better?
Right, and you know, it's openness. You open the mind already. You put all the emotions to the side,
Yeah.
And, I think we know we're doing not we, I said when I'm speaking we, I mean everyone listening too. Yeah. We know in this world we're doing good and we're growing when people look at you and say, that's too much, that's overboard, you're crazy, like we talk about this all the time, like tell me I'm crazy over and over again. That's just like a stamp to say, like, obviously as long as I'm not sitting in the middle of the parking lot yelling crazy stuff out, but at the end of the day, if someone's telling you like, yeah, that's overboard, that's too much, you know what I mean? To me, it's just like, that's an affirmation that I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? That I'm focusing on the little details of my life and I care about them, and that's just someone that maybe needs to level up and do that a little bit more for themselves.
Right, and I think that takes a lot, right? Because I think at first you're different. Like, we become different, and it's just facts, right? Like, I think there's more people than not are going one way. So when you start talking about these different things, there's a true lack of self-belief. There's a true lack of self-dedication, self-discipline. There's a lack of all of that because, unfortunately, right now in society, we're looking for everyone else to give it to us.
Right.
But it doesn't come from anyone else, right? You have to get it yourself. It's the only way you get it. So, again, to just go back a little bit, I believe that there's three major parts of a human being. I think I was taught these things through entrepreneurship and fighting because they both sucked every bit of me out every single day of my life. And that's where the mental, physical, and emotional really came to fruition for me. Because at the end of every day, it was true. If I wasn't physically exhausted, I just felt emotionally exhausted. And if I wasn't emotionally, I was mentally. And I'm just like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's my whole self. Like, all right. So I'm leaving myself on the field every day. I was about to curse, but I'm leaving my whole self on the day, my whole self on the field every single day. That's how I operate. Like, when I leave, I'm ready. When I leave my house, I'm ready to not come home type deal. Like, I'm either coming home or I'm coming home with my shield, like a Spartan warrior. Right. Like, that's the mentality. And I think the only way for me to achieve the vision, the huge brand that we are creating, because this is like Apple or Amazon, like that's what Relentless is. It's a brand, it's a movement. So in order to do that, it embodies all of yourself. And I think you have to cater. And it doesn't have to be that, right? It could be whatever you are in your life. You should want to be the best version of yourself for all those things. And the way you're going to do that is by understanding to break down the different versions of yourself. So in the morning, for me, my priming moments are for me to cater to my mental and emotional self. My midday workout is to my physical self. I work out my body physically, and I'm strengthening my whole self every day. But like you said, I do think as I study more and more, high-level competitors and winners of any space, they talk about it in their own little way of starting the day with something uncomfortable, okay? And I've studied all them, and I came up with my own whole system of taking all of it, but it starts with getting up early because I don't want to. It's uncomfortable. It's that is emotional. Right. I'm laying in my bed. I love to sleep. I haven't slept over 5 or 6 hours in over 2 years since the baby, since the pandemic, since anxiety. I used to sleep in on Sundays till 11 o'clock, right? I'd work Monday through Saturday hard and sleep in, recharge, and go. Now I don't have that, so what I had to do, I had to level myself up. I had to take care of myself differently because I have different levels of sleep now, so I had to level it out. But I don't want to get up. I'm comfortable. I'm sore. I'm tired. Like, just like everybody else, right? But in that moment, I think about my legacy. I think about the vision. I think about all these things, and I open my eyes. I say, no, you're getting up. And I get up. And from there, that's the first win. Then from there, it's all the other things I place in line for myself, to the systems that I've created of stretching, to activation, to shadow boxing rounds, to whatever it is. It's me saying to myself, you're going to do this. And then I do it.
Complete it.
And then I do this. And then I complete it. And then, so before I even start my day in the outside world, I've already overcome so many personal challenges, because the final piece is I take a shower and then I do a cold shower finish, which I hate cold water. We've done cryotherapy. You know I get cold everywhere. I hate it, okay? But I do it. Why? Because I have to get to the point where I feel your body starts shaking, and then I take control of my heart, and I don't feel I could feel the water, but it's not affecting me anymore. My heart rate calms down, and in that moment, I shut the water off, and I'm ready now. So now whatever comes will not, external forces will never break me internally. Like, it's just, I'm in a different place. I trust and believe in myself too much. My cup is almost overflowing in a good way. And I'm going to keep filling it. Like, there's no stopping. I've done this since I've re-entered since the pandemic. I haven't missed a day, and it's just, but it caters to me, right? I have to give to me, because my mission is to give to everybody else. So if I don't start the day like that, I don't know what would happen anymore. That's just...
Let's note, too, though, the reality of it is it's not something that he just started. I mean, it's not something that he's done his whole life.
No, I just created this over time.
Like, people could easily sit here and we could easily say, this is what we do. This is what we want to do. This is like, we could say it, right? But the truth and the reality of it is, he's telling you that he didn't wake up until 11 a.m. until this point. He realized he needed to level up, but he's growing, and he's okay and open with going through those experiences to learn what betters himself and how he could grow. Because 3:45, right? Did I get the time right?
Yeah.
3:45 in that moment turns into probably 10, 15 minutes later, he loves it. Right?
Oh, yeah, I feel...
Then those tasks, in those moments, the completion, he loves it. Then after that cold shower, he loves it. So when we implement these things and we level up at whatever points in our day, in our daily operation, in our life, like, it's not things that you don't try to go and find something that you've been doing and say, hey, I've been waking up at 5 a.m. since I was 5 years old. I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm going to keep doing it. Like, this is great. No, because you're not challenging yourself. You're not changing anything. That's great. Keep doing that. Yeah. And then maybe either try to wake up earlier or find something else where you do have a little flaw or where you could better yourself, you know?
I'm going to add to what you just said because it's a major point. I figured out through studying humans and understanding them and asking questions and researching and reading, I call it a physiological hack almost. I have tapped into the physiological. In the morning, I don't do anything crazy. I'm very intentful. It's a whole stretch. Everything has intent. I'm stretching and flexibility. I'm more flexible than ever. But it's the physiological shift. By me forcing myself, my mind dictates. It's like the coach. So the coach tells me, I'm like, it's my current self, my next level self is coaching my current self.
Right.
Okay? Which tells my emotional self to get up. But then what starts happening is when I get to the point where I start moving, science says when you move your body, physiologically, chemicals shift. Cortisol, the stress hormone, starts going down and testosterone starts increasing. I could literally feel it happen in my body now. So there's a moment, it's usually, it's right as I'm finishing up my band activation, and I go through also a segment of calf raises and rear delt flies, because I do that because I think I got to keep my little thing strong, my ankles, my feet, and my rear delt flies, just from all the boxing I do. So as I'm finishing up that and I'm entering into my shadow boxing rounds, my eyes open differently. Right. It's just different. I feel the blood flow through my. It's an amazing.
And it didn't happen the first time. It's just over time as you build it, your body and it becomes accustomed to it, right?
And then that moment that's the feeling I go for. Right. The last thing I'll add is I also have right before I go upstairs is I taught myself how to juggle, and before I could finish everything, it's a competitive thing. So I juggle. I have to do 5 rotations. So I have to do it in a row. So now I'm competing with time because I have to get ready. So I have competition in me and I have to finish. I have to do 5 in a row, 5 in a row, and 5 in a row in the middle. If I drop it, I stay there. And I cannot move forward. It's a forced thing that I made myself, so I have to compete under pressure and it's just for myself. Right. So the way I look at it is, what you do in private shines in public, right? So if I need to be a leader when everybody else is watching, the cameras on, I better be able to perform alone and put some stuff in front, because otherwise I'm gonna be like, oh my god, everybody's watching me, I'm all nervous, right? So it's these little things that I've done that have helped me be who I need to be for the movement, for everyone, you know. So it's fun, but it's fun now. It sucked a little bit in the beginning because you're kind of figuring it out, but now it's fun.
And let's also go back a couple episodes to the episode where Matt was, kind enough to share his experiences and his fact of him losing his vision to put it out there and make himself vulnerable for people to listen and help motivate them, right? So let's go back to that. A lot of these things that he's adjusted to and have done, I'm gonna speak for him a little, and because I know how he is. He's a little modest about it, but like a lot of these changes that he's made were not easy ones because of his lack of vision, right? But also a lot of these things he's done has been like, that's the situation he was dealt with, and he spoke about a lot of these things in that episode, but he's highlighting them a lot more now, which I love, to help him be better and work around that and forget, like, put that in its place and know where it is and just build everything around it so that he could still do the things he wants, he loves, and he's capable of, right? Yep. So let's take that in the moment. I'm going to, again, speak for Matt, saying, like, think of the reasons why he's doing these things and how challenging it really is. They're simple little things, but how challenging it really is to do it over and over and compound it. What I want to really get into is talk about now on the other end. So what this all leads to is like is our daily operations and these tasks that we have every day, from whatever business you're in, seeing your client if you're in a service business, working with your employees if you're not, and on the back end, working with vendors, whatever it may be, whatever industry you're in, whatever you're doing. So now we do all this stuff, and then it makes it easier to go and attack these tasks. So something that I really pride myself in, and things that I've implemented over time, is more in the this stuff that I'm going to highlight is more in the within our ears. You know what I mean? It's things that add up throughout the day, and it's stuff such as, which we keep pinning as a very important thing, time management, scheduling, controlling our time, using that schedule. So for me, it's like every night before I go to bed, and there's no given bedtime for me, but when I know when my settle down moment is, when I feel my body settling down, I make sure that whether it's on my iPad, whatever my source is, I get it in front of me and I go and I check and make sure everything's in place and in order, right? Rarely, I pride myself in this, and we do, rarely will I make an appointment and forget about it, not put something on my calendar. It happens. It's very rare. I'm talking like a couple times a year, you know, and it happens so rare. I could say when they are right now. I could tell you the moments that they are.
That's the
but the reality is that it happens. But to avoid it from happening more than 2-3 times a year, I sit down, and it's moments for me now. It's become moments because it's been built in, like these things that that Matt's talking about. I look at my schedule, you know, on my calendar, and I check and I make sure all those clients are there. So if I see one that I'm like, oh wait, I scheduled them, I didn't put it on there, I follow up, I go to the text, I call, I do whatever I have to do to make sure that my next day is in order. Then I go to my task list and I make sure that, okay, is anything not done today that needed to be done that was imperative that I missed? So I could hit it and get it out before the night ends and then attack it the first thing next morning. And then I say, what needs to be done tomorrow, and I make sure I have that all in order. And then I'm at a beautiful place.
That's it.
And it's simple now, but it was hard to be honest with yourself. The challenging part was in the beginning to be open and honest with yourself to what those things are, to figure out what those you know, because it's simple. Oh, what do you mean? That's your schedule. That's what you do daily. Some people just put them in. I just do it out of my head. You know what I mean? Some people have success with it, but there's also a lot of those people that are late for things, forget about things. They just put everything in their head. You know what I mean? Yeah. And again, let's go back. Matt even, you know what I mean?
I just transferred this
but
to my head, and I'm
from your head, and it's you could see the difference in and it's something he's done, right? Yeah. So from writing it down to using a calendar, a shared calendar, to whatever way, there's always a way. Yep. There's always a way to better yourself. You know, there's always a way to implement things, whether it's the things that Matt's talking about, the things that I'm talking about, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. No matter what it is, there's always ways to better yourself.
I love what you're saying, and I think what this comes back to, because we've spoken on this a lot throughout our journey, is understanding to control the things we can, and then what that does is allows us to be more comfortable as the things come that we can't control to handle them, right? So what this is truly is, we call it, like, we just spoke on two different ends, right? Which is called bookending our days, we like to say. So we have very high level, intentful.
I did that intentionally, by the way.
I love it. That was smooth. That was smooth. We have high level, intentful routine and disciplines to start and finish our day. Yes. That's how we operate. Okay? The morning is to prepare and get ready to attack the fucking day ahead of us. The nighttime is to reflect and prepare for the next day, right? So before I go to bed, I'm doing the same types of things, and I'm also preparing. I have all my stuff, all those priming tools that I have out is laid out. Everything's away. Like, I need my house to. Me and my wife are a great team. She washes all the dishes; they're drying. I put them all away. Like, I want to wake up, everything is perfect. We attack our day on a fresh day, right? And that's our thing. Like, we have a great teammanship at home as well, which also aids us in our ability to do what we do. So very important that we have that. But when you put your head down and you start realizing, and like you're saying, putting things down on paper and seeing them, right? Because we're big advocates of brain to hand to put to paper and then see, which leaves space here for other things, and then allows you to see this. I did this, right? That builds confidence. It helps build momentum. And then when you feel in control of the things that you can, right, it allows you to almost have like a game plan, right? So now you know like what you're doing, how to do it, and why you're doing it. And then when other stuff comes, you're like, okay, now in this moment when something presents itself, you and I are the best we've ever been at this. We're looking to get better because that's how we are. But we take a situation, we take a deep breath, we're cool. Okay, we assess the situation. Where is this right now, right? What priority does this take? Does this mean that we have to stop everything and handle this now? Can we put it somewhere special? Like, where does it go, right? And I think by understanding everything else that's going on, it allows us to understand where this needs to go, right? And then what that does is it starts closing the gap, like you said earlier. It closes the gap on missed opportunities or bad opportunities and messing up an appointment, something of that nature. Like, what it does is it starts closing the gap on the percentage of anything to go bad or not be figured out, right? Because we're not going to figure everything out the first time it comes, but we're going to do our best, and then we'll assess, and we're gonna keep doing that until we figure it out.
Right.
So
it truly clears the space. All this preparation, all these things that are done on the bookends, clears the space for those moments in between, as Matt is mentioning. What I want to do here is I want to really define something I have big and bold in our notes here. What does it mean in this point, like right now where we're at in our life, to be selfish? What does that mean to you to be selfish?
I think it means everything, because it allows me to be everything else I desire in my mind to be. So I believe that I'm going to be the ultimate selfless connector. I get calls more than ever, and it's what I've always wanted. People call me for anything. I am a true problem solver. I am someone that you call when you have no clue what to do. You call me and I talk to you, I calm you down, and we figure out a solution. I will pride myself in being that man, the man that is calm into the most highest level situations. So the only way that I could be that, because I believe that the world needs that. So I will create that person, and I will be that person for my circle now, our community, and eventually the whole world.
Right.
It will turn into that, right? I have to pay my dues, and I have to earn my respect and trust by my circle now for me to grow. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way that I could do that is by being selfish, calculatedly, okay?
Right.
Calculatedly. The journey for me in the beginning of entrepreneurship, I thought selfish was to just let myself go to the wayside and give to everybody else, and just be. Almost just exist so everybody else can survive too.
Yeah, be the tool for everyone.
Be the tool, feed everybody, do that, run around. I was dwindling down to nothing. And then the next level of that was, now I'm like on the complete opposite. Like I dedicate more time to myself now than anything. And I realized that is the secret way. It's the secret sauce, because now I'm pulling, right? We've talked about this. I used to push. We used to push everybody because we saw a little bit of good in them, and we thought we could push them and be like, no, you could do this. Come on. Now, after a long journey, it's 11, 12, however long, it's a long time, but took a step back, and this is the pandemic again. Shout out the pandemic. A lot of great things came from that, and defined a lot of things and helped us understand things about how we're going to take this brand to the next level. Mm-hmm. But it showed us that we, as leaders and as people, that people look to us now for guidance, leadership, affirmation, confirmation, all these things. We need to be the best versions of us. And the only way we're going to do that is by dedicating time to ourselves. So rather than me going out of my way to dedicate time to try to make you be something that maybe you're not, I'm just going to put the work in and go.
Right.
And people now, it's crazy, because I read all the books, I do all this stuff, and you hear it and you're like, it makes sense, but like, you got to just do it, right? And now I'm doing it, and I'm feeling it. And my team is the strongest that it's ever. The feeling, I have euphoric feelings. I get the chills multiple times a day now from the conversations, the words, the feelings that the squad is putting out, the way that they just get it and they feel it. And like, it's because of the 2 years ago, right? And like, it's like all these things that we've dedicated ourselves to, but you have to be patient, you have to let it happen, but now it's happening. So that's the long answer. I'm not a short storyteller, but
yeah, it's beautiful.
But that's the answer. So the answer is, I believe that it's, in order to be the ultimate final selfless version, it comes down to fully self first.
Right.
So, and how about yourself now?
So we went through. Or I look at it this way. I went through. In early life, you go through. You're giving. People give, right? You're more prone to give a lot. To give answers. To try to give solutions, to give your time, to give your energy, to give your love, whatever it may be. It's a lot of giving. It's a lot of pushing, right? It's a lot of pushing stuff out. It's a lot of driving stuff out. And then you come to a point where there's a lot of great that comes from giving. There's a lot of beautiful things that come from giving, but there's just enough moments when you're giving that you get burnt, or that someone doesn't accept it, or that you wasted time. But you don't know that until you give. You don't know it.
Yes.
You can't just say,
nope.
You can't just understand what giving is. You have to feel it. You have to truly go through those things. And then there comes a point where for me, I closed off and went through that selfish mode of bettering myself, of bettering my smaller circle around me.
Yep.
People that truly accepted it and deserve it and want it. And also people that just connect with, and then it works. Because there is people that you give to, and it just they got their own thing going on and they do whatever they need to do. But the small circle, so it doesn't have to be, but for me it was, my Matt being my business partner and us growing together just as real good friends, are my loved one, my wife Lauren, my family, my mother, my father, my grandmother, who I'm very close with, and my brother, and then a couple very, very close friends that we just stayed connected. Someone such as Mark, my buddy Mike, Corey, just like everyone that we've stayed very connected with, a lot of our friends. So once I tighten that up, and sometimes it happens by default, but I intentionally did it and worked on being selfish within my circle, then you just start giving in another way. You start giving in a way where you create yourself at its strongest point in that moment, that then people start reaching out and accepting that, and it's more of a pull, like you said, and they're accepting that hand. So being selfish in those moments of, again, going back to using my time with my loved ones, with those people that I mentioned, using my energy with them, being very cautious and careful with the love that I was giving off to those people, the true love that I was giving off to them, and that making sure they were accepting it and utilizing it. And in moments that maybe people weren't, saying, okay, that's just not a path I'm going to go with them. I'm not going to take the time to give them that call. Obviously, if they call, I'm going to answer. I'm here for them, but I'm just not going to give that extra energy for certain people and things too. Yes. Whether it be, watching certain sports, some things that I was passionate about, cutting certain things out because it doesn't deserve my energy. Financially giving my, paying for something, a service or something that not just because the financial reason, because the burden that it would put on me because I know I'm not using it in the right way, or it's not giving back what I'm investing in it. So becoming selfish in those ways is what being selfish means to me. It doesn't mean taking stuff from people. No, it doesn't mean, hiding things from people. Yeah. And I think that's where we go wrong with using selfishness. Oh, yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. This is another great episode. We should get back to doing some more, just you and I. Yeah. We could kind of, I agree. Not to be selfish in any way, but there's a lot we could give off.
Yeah, I love it.
Most importantly, what I want to remind everyone before Matt leaves us off with a little some fun to keep your day rolling and to close us out, is share stuff with us. We have a couple amazing people in our circle, in our community, that are avid listeners to the podcast. More than a couple that are avid listeners, but these people give us feedback. They text us after they listen. That's our energy to give more and more and more. They give us constructive criticism, things we could do better, that we've adjusted and we learn, and they also give us positive feedback of things they want more of, and that helps them go through their day. For us, that's beautiful, because as equal as the conversations that we have with them throughout a day isn't enough, they have to listen to us for an hour straight. Same with us. Those conversations aren't enough for us. We want more feedback in through text, through phone call. Yes. We want them to go out of their way more and more to do that. So please continue to do that. This is all for the bigger picture. This is the relentless way. We want to grow this and continue to just give off to people, whether it's through our guests, through ourselves, or through any experiences through the relentless way. So now, Matt, give all the listeners something to roll and continue their day on with, and finish up strong.
I'm gonna leave with a story. So I'm gonna talk about the Tony Robbins story that I love about the elephant. So if you heard me say it, I'll do it better. I'll deliver it better. But Tony Robbins tells a great story about an elephant. Okay, now as an elephant is a very smart animal, and it's known that an elephant never forgets. Right, it's a true thing, and it's a very strong memory. So if you all think back to like a circus, an elephant at a circus, right? And if you've been there, you've seen it. If you haven't, you know what I'm talking about. But it's a circus, beautiful, there's stuff going on. There's always that big elephant somewhere, right? And it has a little rope tied around its neck to like a little post in the ground. It's like a thing, like we've seen it. And we all look at it and we're like, this big animal, one of the strongest animals in the jungle, is just standing there. And it's not moving based upon this thing. And Tony Robbins has done research on it, and the story he tells is unbelievable. So the elephant, when it's a baby, it's still a strong animal. It's a big animal. So when a baby elephant is little, they tie a big rope to its neck and a big post. And that baby is a baby, right? Babies are wild. They're crazy. They don't want to be held down. They want to move around. And that elephant tries to get away from that post day in and day out. And it has its moments. They play with it and they feed it and all that. So it has its good times. But then it wants to just get out of there, right? And it tries, and it can't. It's created that way. It's too strong of a place. It's meant to hold the elephant there. And what happens is eventually the elephant gives up and it stops trying to get away, okay? And now it's a memory inside of that elephant that it never forgets that this rope and this means I can't move. And now the elephant grows and it's accustomed to that. It remembers that. It is conditioned. So the word now that Tony teaches in this story is being conditioned. Okay, so this elephant, the biggest animal in the world, is conditioned to just stand there and be sad. And meanwhile, it could easily rip that post out, but it won't because it remembers that it can't. Okay, so now the lesson is, in this moment, Paul and I are going to give everyone the opportunity, right? This is the opportunity for you to say to yourself, hey, I'm not happy where I am in this given moment, and there's probably a reason why, okay? Because you're most likely conditioned from past experiences, whatever they were, from your upbringing, your life, personally, professionally, whatever, to be in this moment, and now subliminally, this is your standard of living, okay? So you, in this world, subliminally live under the standard at which you perceive you deserve, okay? Now, like Tony says, and what we're going to say now is that we're giving you the authority and the ability to say to yourself, I am not happy with where I am right now, and this is not my standard. I deserve more. And in that moment of making a decision, you can recondition yourself. It is true. It is facts. It is true psychological, real science. It starts by making a decision and then putting in place the steps that you need to achieve the new standard. And the fact is this: nobody can tell you your standard but you. And that's it. That's period. So when you're ready to make that decision, it's a personal decision. And then when you do, then it falls into everything else like we speak about surrounding yourself with the right people and all that other stuff. So we have all that stuff for everybody whenever you are ready, right? But for now, it's about understanding and taking a step back and realizing that the scenario, the life, the standard at which you are living is your fault. It's you, and it's not right or wrong. It's in that moment, if you're not happy with it, it's all on you. And when you're willing to take ownership and say, hey, it's not where I want to be, but in this moment, I know that this is going to be the old me because I'm about to go out and create the new me. Once that moment is decided in your mind, it's unstoppable because that's what the human body is, right? So we're giving the power to everybody to say, hey, I'm not happy now and I want to change and recreate my standard. And if there's anything that we could do inside of this relentless movement with ourselves and our team, we want everybody to reach out because we got everything that we need to get you to that point. But otherwise, let's all go out, let's put our heads down, and let's crush our day. Let's make the seconds, the minutes, the hours of this day today count. Let's reflect, and let's get ready to crush the next day and allow our current self to be led by our future self. And for us to constantly be looking to grow ourselves individually to become the next best version of ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally.
So you heard it here first. Be selfish. Focus on yourself. Episode number 9, the Relentless Way podcast. Share on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and for a couple of these final moments, definitely go and check out YouTube if you want to see the raw emotion and action going on here. We'll catch you next episode.
Let's get it.